Hey everybody, Dave Lindberg with another episode of the THD Podcast. Today we have a guest coming in from Latvia, and they have a unique technology that focuses on the signal processing side of things. They play on the pro audio producer side of things, but today's discussion we're going to try to focus on the consumer and how they bring benefit to those type of products. So as always, we have our co-host calling in from Sendai, Japan. Simon, how are things over there today?
Very well, thanks, Dave. I got a bit of criticism on my THD background, so I've switched to just a nice mute black.
Okay, looks like it's a bit of damping material there from... At any rate, so yeah, our guest, thanks for joining. So Jānis is a partner and business development with Sonarworks. So Jānis, thanks for joining us here today. Can you tell us a bit about the starting blocks, where your company came from and what your mission is as a business?
Yes, and Dave and Simon, thanks for having me. Really great to be in a show. I'll definitely start with covering how do we come from the pro audio side, how we are going to consumer side, and I'll also have some slides to make this story kind of more appealing and also have some more tangible data points as we go. So in this case, let me share the screen and let's roll in a second. So let's see, screen is here. So view full screen. Perfect. Do you see my screen?
Yeah, perfectly. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. If I start with a bit of background, as a company, we've been nearly for 10 years working in the pro audio space, and our big mission on a whole company level is to bring individually perfected sound to both music creators or audio creators and also to consumers, listeners, fans. So we want to make sure we, in a way, bridge these two audiences. And if I look at some of the highlights, we started about this 10 years ago in the pro audio space, helping recording studios to fix and standardize their sound when it comes to how recording studio speakers sound in a treated room, or how do the headphones sound when engineers are mixing or recording, different artists or working on games or movies. And we are really happy to how the technology used in right now more than 70,000 recording studios. So Simon, you are in Japan, so studios in Tokyo, studios in Hong Kong, LA, New York, London. So it's quite a big global presence, and we are also super thrilled to have award-winning engineers and artists using our technology on daily basis. And when we look at who is being recorded now with our technology in studios, we see, quite a bit of A-level stars like Adele, Taylor Swift, Lady Gaga, Steve Aoki, and lately more and more movies, games, ads, you name it, are recorded, are mixed using our technology. And fun thing, I wish I was, Olympic athlete, but even Rio Olympic closing ceremony was mixed with help of our technology, and we are really happy that our technology has been helpful for these, high caliber engineers, artists, who work on this magic recording music, audio. And if I look what is the problem we are solving for engineers and for artists is, let's take an example. Let's take this kind of flat sound sweep and let's send this into different speakers and headphones. And what came in flat suddenly turns nothing close to flat. It's like a mountains, suddenly more bass, less bass, more treble, less treble. And this is crazy, kind of, when you have this perfect mix in a studio, it just doesn't sound the same anymore when you leave the studio. And with our technology, we are ensuring that if you send this balanced signal in, you get actually balanced signal out. And that is the way how we connect creators between themselves, and also we can deliver the same sound to listeners. And if we look at the modern components of sound quality, even for example, you take an artist, he or she comes into recording studio with a vision. Then there is a studio work where we help with the way how speakers sound in a room. Then this as a file is transferred to listeners. It can be a band or their fans, and then it gets played on headphones or speakers, and it's enjoyed. And in the essence, we are ensuring we are connecting. Wait a sec. We are connecting the engineers with artists, with fans on one sound. Kind of the same sound you would hear in a studio with artists would be the same sound you would hear in a different studio or on headphones anywhere else in the world. And kind of that's that key technology we have been building for recording studio space. And now when we look at the consumer space, we know that we can deliver the same exact sound as you heard in the studio, the same exact frequency response. And we have had amazing demos for media when we go into New York studio and showcase how, amazing studio speakers, these headphones, more expensive headphones, cheaper headphones sound alike. And that is pretty amazing. But now when we think about users, we want to make sure that we bring the artist effort with maximum impact. It's the wow effect. And when we were starting doing blind tests, and we are quite a bit of research-based company, we actually learned that not all the listeners like this, balanced studio sounds. There are people who like more bass, there are people who like less bass. There are suddenly different preferences. So we actually went into learning what's happening, learning into understanding that, and we did run a biggest study on sound preference. We had more than 400 sound options. It was close to 40,000 people doing close to 2 million tests globally. And this study is ongoing, so pretty much all the figures are double by now. And the way how we did these tests were that you play a reference track on calibrated headphones like these. You have two options of this track, say A with more bass, B with less bass. You do A, B, A, B, A, B. I like B better. And the next comparison, and the next. And after several comparison rounds, always listener finds a sound that she says like, ooh, this is nice. This is really nice. And our biggest surprise was that the most liked sound was number one for only 17% of people. And for us, it was eye-opener. It means that pretty much everyone wants something else. There is no, one Holy Grail, one sound to rule them all. And based on this insight, over the last, I would say it was 3 years, we built technology that now delivers 78% conversion rate, meaning that 78% of listeners find the sounds that they like, and they like it better than the initial stock sound of headphones. And we call this concept SoundID. It's like my unique SoundID. It's Dave, it's your unique SoundID. It's Simon, your unique SoundID. And to get to this SoundID, to actually create this profile, there are 3 levels we look at. First is actually measuring device and making sure we bring that to the same reference sounds that artists and engineers use in their studios. Second is adding preference. Third is adding adjustment for hearing. And if we look maybe step by step deeper, the first step is what we do in the pro audio space, measuring all the different sounding hardware and ensuring, it sounds on this balanced, neutral reference sounds that recording studios use. On a second step, we are adding the personal preference. And there are people who like more bass, there are people who like perfectly balanced sound, there are people who like more treble, less treble, there are different preferences. And third level is measuring hearing like we would do at, say, doctor's office, and then doing also the adjustment for hearing. So in the essence, what we believe is individually perfected sound for listeners is hearing the same sound as creator or artist heard, but it's personalized for preference or for hearing.
So just to understand that, so you're using the SoundID database. So you've collected data based on preferences. Maybe somebody likes Pantera and Gore and all the death metal, and maybe somebody else likes pop music like Adele or Coldplay. And so you've kind of identified a thread of EQ perhaps, or something unique about all those recordings and the way they like them, the preferences of how the sound levels are mixed or set in playback. And so then is that kind of the foundation once you understand, okay, this, and you could read the person's library on their iPhone or Android and go, oh yeah, so this would match with the Pantera group, or this would match with the Adele group. And then is that where the SoundID comes from all the data sets that you've collected based on the preference?
It's, I would say what we have learned through lots of data and research is that, you know, this preference you have, it's pretty consistent across all the music you listen to. You know, there are people who are music enthusiasts who like everything to be this balanced, as close to the natural sound as possible. There are people who love more bass, kind of just give me more bass on metal, on hip hop, on EDM. I love it that way. And what we have learned that once you find your kind of sound patterns that you like, it pretty consistently works on whatever music you listen to. As for me, for example, my sound pattern is bit more bass, bit less treble, and if I listen to, say, rock or pop or, you know, classical, I like it. You know, it works for me really well. So we have learned that once you find this SoundID, the SoundID is consistently the way how you like your music, and it also applies to, say, movies you watch or games you play, because it's kind of, it's the closest sound to original, but it's personalized for your unique, you know, taste or hearing.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And if I continue, how do we think about that from product perspective, or how is that applicable now for you know, companies and teams who are building, say, headphones? Is that right now we have built an app. It's called SoundID. It's possible to download on Android and iOS. And in the essence, this it's an interactive app for one to create SoundID. You select your headphones, you do A/B tests, and after, you know, several steps, you reach this screen where the on is your SoundID and the off is the initial stock sound of headphones. And you can instantly do this A/B comparison and kind of say like, oh yeah, I like it. And the beauty is that the SoundID is fast to create, but if you are, say, music enthusiast, you can go back and you can fine tune that. You can add more advanced hearing measurement. You can play around with that. But if you just want to make it quickly and make sure it works, hey, it's like 1 minute and you are there. And if you look from what we are building as a company, we want to build this ecosystem where Dave or Simon, you can create your SoundID on your headphones. When you go out for jogging, you can apply that to your true wireless headphones. You can come back to your home, you can apply that to your home speakers. And when you drive to office, you can apply that to your car audio. And I think it was 2 years back at the CES where we showcased for the first time that speakers, headphones, different headphones, and car can sound alike. So we can pretty much ensure that we bridge this ecosystem and the sound you love can be together with you, either you are at home or in a car or in the office listening to your headphones. So kind of that is the thing what we are building right now. And if we look from the thinking perspective from the business side, we want to make sure that SoundID is free to create, but to experience that, we want to do that through partnerships, for example, on headphones. And also we want to make sure that people can use also SoundID mobile app or desktop app for SoundID experience. Because for us, having our own products is the way how we continue the research, how we engage with our customers, how we learn what they need, and thus we can bring even better products for our possible partners. And kind of if I come back to this, sound ecosystem, is that, you see that with our Pro Studio technology, Sonarworks SR, we ensure this, balanced, the same sounds that you would hear in a studio, the same sound coming into your headphones, but with SoundID, we add this personal touch. If you have any hearing issue or you want to prefer more bass, perfect, we have you covered. Here, SoundID comes into effect to make sure this artist vision is delivered with a maximum impact also for the fan, for the listener. So kind of that's how it works on an ecosystem level. And maybe final touch, if we look at real life application, how would that work, for example, in case of headphones? And we have just launched first partnership in a market with a company called Monoprice, is that for SoundID to have easy experience, it's great to have your SoundID profile here on headphone chipset, meaning that whatever is your device, iPhone, Android phone, whatever is your audio source, headphones do the job to making sure it's applied with SoundID. And Monoprice are using our SoundID app to connect to their headphones, to create SoundID profile and to upload that into the chipset. And the SoundID profile is created in the cloud, because it's interesting or important fact, with all the big data we have from the research, now we are having two algorithms to compete for the fastest way to find the sound preference. One is a human-made algorithm, other is machine learning, and we see that if initially human algorithm was amazing, lately machine learning is getting quicker and more precise way to find the sounds that you like on the preference side. So it's all happening real time in the cloud. So in this case, ecosystem is cloud app that takes care of SoundID creation, and then the profile uploading into headphone chipset. And for other partners, it's possible to also use a partner's app where there is a SoundID creation module part of their app. So kind of that is how do we think about how SoundID can be experienced, for example, in the headphone areas. That is our first priority as of now. And kind of just to summarize, so our big level vision is to make sure we can help mixing engineers, artists, to make sure they can work on a perfect sound in the studios. But when we go to consumer space, we want to bring this perfect sound personalized to deliver this maximum impact for the listeners. So that's kind of brief and long summary from what do we do on a pro side and how does that link to the consumer side.
Okay.
So I got a couple of questions, if you don't mind. What the app that you have at the moment, it is doing the EQ on the phone.
Yes,
and it's in the form of like a biquad filter structure.
Yes, correct. If you look at the core filters we use, if you, for example, look at the Pro Studio space, we use FIR filter with 4,000 taps precision. It's super precise.
Okay.
If you look at applying the same technology to headphones do not have this resolution. So we use IIR filter with biquads in headphones to make sure it's really good and kind of mathematically, it's definitely worse than technology we use in Pro Studio space. But when we do blind tests, it's super close. It's really close. So regular listener cannot distinguish whether it's played back on a high level FIR filter or bit optimized IIR backward filter.
So in the case of an Android, so in the case of an Android phone, you use your app as the music player in order to let it pass through the filters?
Right now, for example, if I would use these headphones, the mobile phone app would work as a filter. And in the mobile phone, we use high resolution because, mobile phone has the capability. If I would look at monoprice headphones where you can upload your profile into the chipset, and chipset has limitations on computing power, on battery life, there we use backwards and an IIR filter, and that's kind of optimized for the headphone use case for running in the headphone chipset.
So that monoprice product, it has got like a Qualcomm Bluetooth chip in it, and that is you're actually programming the filters on that chip.
Correct.
So do they have to make a custom firmware for that? How does that work out?
Actually, we developed firmware for Qualcomm chipsets. And then together with our partner, we integrate this firmware into the chipset. And since we are also partner of Qualcomm on Qualcomm extension program, we have a good and nice support from Qualcomm team to ensure it all works smoothly. And we are happy to support Qualcomm chipsets, Qualcomm products.
Yeah, so that kind of on-the-fly adjustment or setting the filter coefficients, essentially. Is anybody else doing that, or is it just Qualcomm at the moment?
I think it's possible to do also on the other chipsets in the market. And if you look, there are, Iroha, BES chipsets.
Yeah.
But as of this moment, we have optimized our solution for Qualcomm. If you are looking longer term, for sure, if our partners are using other kind of chipsets, we will look also to optimize experience for these chipsets.
Yeah. So it can do it, but I don't really see anybody implementing that capability. You think in principle it should be fairly straightforward, but there may be some quirks that need to be worked out in terms of the firmware structure.
Yeah. Kind of, especially once, team perfectly understands the chipset structure and kind of what has to go into it's fairly I wouldn't say straightforward, but definitely possible to implement it. It takes time and effort and thinking and work, but eventually when it's done, it's really good. It works smoothly.
Yep. So I'm curious too, in terms of how you set it out on a block diagram, you have your personalized, your characteristic that you like, and your SoundID. Then you have your device, let's say whatever headphone model you've got. And then maybe some hearing adjustment, but leave that out for the moment. So you'd have this a stage of filter, which is your SoundID, a stage of filters, which is the headphone. But in practice, you actually combine those into one set of coefficients. So is there some kind of tricky mathematics to do that? I mean, you can't just multiply the coefficients together. You have to compute a new set based on this chain of
yep, and you also have to make sure it works and the sound is great and there is no artifacts or distortion. Kind of that is quite a bit of effort. Our team is worked out to make sure that it works smooth. And also kind of I'll go little bit back to these 3 layers. Here are these 3 layers. Initially, the most difficult layer was measuring, say, these headphones or in-ear headphones to make sure they perfectly match the sound of nicely treated speakers in a nicely built recording studio. And initially we thought, hey, we'll just bring or buy one of these, camera heads, we'll do the measurement, invert, and it will work. Yeah. And we actually learned the hard way that it just doesn't work. So I think we spent about 3 years and few $1 million to really come up with a solid way how to measure headphones over ear, on ear, in ear, and make sure this first step is ensuring the same sound as you would hear in recording studio. That was the first big challenge. Second big challenge was, once we started seeing in the research their preferences are actually different, was getting this big research up and running to make sure we have data that's representative on a global level, that works for Asia, works for United States, and for Europe. So then it took us more than a year to run this research involving 40,000 people globally to make sure we get this big data for learning preference. And third difficult layer was all the work on the hearing measurement, because kind of once you measure hearing, you just cannot invert this hearing profile to make sure it works. It has to. There are certain algorithms that translate this to make sure it's enjoyable and that works. And as you mentioned, combining all these three levels together, that is the real magic when it comes together. And you hear your SoundID and you say like this, like, wow, I love it. That is this moment of truth.
Yep, fascinating. And so in terms of the processing power, at the moment that's handled by a phone if you're using the app, but preferably you'd put that onto a Bluetooth chip, in which case it's more or less for free in a sense, because they're mostly already running EQ filters, right?
In a way, yes. This might, add some more layer of complexity, and maybe we'll still take some part of the computing power. But in the essence, we are working from this optimized filters that headphones have. And then kind of key thing for us is to make sure that when the SoundID profile is created on the phone, to upload these coefficients as efficiently as possible to the headphone chipset to make sure it uses all the chipset capabilities to run smoothly.
So do you go out and buy the products, or do the manufacturers of a headphone come to you and say, here's my product, would you please add it to your list?
There are different ways, kind of, since very many studios rely on our technology for speaker measurement and headphone measurement. There are many companies that want to make sure their headphones are covered in our database. So, engineers buy their products to make sure it's, working in their, production ecosystem. If you look at the consumer space, we see more and more interest from headphone manufacturers, especially those who, care about their sound experience, sound quality, about their users, experience. More and more companies see that there is a value to bring SoundID into their headphones to make sure if you have this pair of headphones that you love it, it works well, it fits nicely, you can also deliver this personal sound on that kind of, we make sure we optimize the last mile from your headphones also on the sound level. And that is quite a good value that more and more companies appreciate. So I would say already starting from January next year, we'll see more and more headphones out in the market with SoundID being built as a part of the headphone chipset.
The getting the headphone thing, do you call that characterizing a headphone? Is that a good term? The characterization of a product?
I would say yes, maybe characterization is this first level. When we actually understand how they sound, we can measure them and bring to this studio reference step.
So this characterization is something that only you guys can do. It's not packaged in a format that can be distributed. I mean, right. Okay, I'd like to set myself up and be able to characterize headphones to meet your spec.
No, right now that's happening in our lab, and the way we usually do, kind of when we want to characterize headphones, we are, from one specific model, we get multiple pairs, we measure all of them, profile all of them. So we want to make sure that we learn on headphone consistency. And the good thing is that most of headphones are very consistent the way they are built. And the key thing is that we want to make sure that this profiling works on all the models. We kind of on the most extreme on both sides, pairs, it works consistently well. So thus we do that in our own lab, and we do that with a big care, because on the pro audio side, our customers, make living with their ears. It has to be perfect. And if it's not good, they are the first ones to notice that, because, their whole life is about hearing things perfectly, precisely. So thus we have a very precise and very kind of thorough way how we do the headphone measurement and profiling, but we do that in our lab to make sure it passes this recording studio grade quality level.
And so on the personalization side and the SoundID side, you had a plot that showed a variety of profiles. Just jump to that one.
It was one of my, and this is just a few sample profiles from about 500 profiles we tested. And unique thing was that out of these 500 profiles, at least once the winner was, I think they were close to 400. So it was very widespread on what are the preferences between people, somebody living in Japan versus somebody living in Paris, or States. And kind of these differences, preferences are quite vary.
I'd probably end up being the light blue, lots of bass, not so much mids, and lots of treble, really sugary. But I'm curious, what's the y-axis scale on that? Like, how many dB are we talking about? Is this fairly representative of what the filter function would look like?
It's kind of simple way how to represent, what could be some of the profiles that could be there, and as you mentioned, that if you like more bass, more treble, kind of you would have this say smiley type of preference. That's definitely a valid preference, and there are kind of
thank you
people like I call my preference like more like a Z. It's a bit more bass and it's kind of mids and a bit less treble. Kind of it's like a Z figure, and we have characterized these patterns into several families. And the unique thing is that none of the families beat the other one. Kind of it's quite a widespread of what people actually like.
What kind of y-axis scale do you have? Is this from 0 to the maximum is 20 dB? Is 10 dB?
If we would look, for example, here, for example, for headphone measurement, there we would see it's from 0 to 15 dB up and down. So it can be crazy differences that different headphones can have for the same frequency. It can be plus minus 15 dB. So I just, it's like, wow. It's like if I'm quiet or if I'm shouting. If we look when it's brought to the studio reference level, then the changes we apply are lighter. So I would say it's in a range from 0 to 9, -9, depending on what kind of preference you have. Yes. If you look at the hearing side, then again, possibly we need to look at a bit higher range, especially, those who are in about 40 or even more about 50, kind of there comes in natural hearing loss, and then the compensations are higher. They can be also about 10 dB. So kind of these are kind of some rough scales we see here.
Do you find that a lot of headphones, I'll come back to this one, a lot of headphones have a designed-in imbalance between left and right, like the rear chamber porting is different? So you have different notch frequencies in the mid-range?
If we look, we have measured, I think like 10,000 pairs and 400 different headphone models. I would say on the way how headphones are built, this left and right are pretty similar. What we see in the research, and if we go to the hearing side, is that mostly from initially us using, phone on one hand when we speak, and it's kind of habit to use this one phone, one hand, there is some difference between left and right ear due to the phone usage. And that is interesting thing. And especially, and once you correct that, and suddenly it all balances. It's like, wow, that's nice. Okay, nowadays with through wireless headphones, it's easy, it's balanced. But as we used to have this, one ear, the key listening ear for phone conversations.
Very good stuff.
Does this also? I don't think we mentioned it, but for we're seeing AirPods and New Hera and some of these brands having hearing assist into their consumer products, and then also, of course, classic hearing aids. Do you guys play in those markets at all? Any business in hearing assist or hearing aids?
Actually, this third level, the hearing part is actually the one that is playing in the in the hearing or the hearables market. I wouldn't say it's medical grade hearing aid. We do not act there. But if it's a mild imbalance between left and right, or there is a mild hearing loss that, if one is in, 60s or 70s, we definitely place there, and we definitely make sure that we do the hearing adjustment. And I had received emails from customers saying that, thank you, I finally hear like I heard it in my 20s. I was like, thank you for bringing it back to me and not using, medical hearing device. So in this case, we definitely take good care of the hearing in this part. But I wouldn't say it's medical grade. I would say it's kind of consumer hearable grade hearing correction.
Okay. And it's also the app, can it be white labeled? So can the SoundID Sonarworks be embedded in perhaps like a Spotify app or something like this? Can they license it? How do the business models play out?
Yeah, it is definitely an area that is possible to discuss. Right now we have our own app, but we can definitely bring our technology into, say, Spotify that you mentioned, app, or into specific headphone app, and make sure that Spotify or partner company in the headphone space or smartphone space benefits from this technology. So it can definitely be ported into different ecosystem in an easy and for user friendly way to make sure this benefit can be experienced.
Yeah, I mean, also something I'm thinking about, and you can tell me this is application. Obviously today this is a podcast, and we find a lot of podcast content, and we're watching YouTube on our television sets now. And sometimes the audio levels can be varied from one, it's like the same podcaster from one recording to the next. So would this be something that would have a function of kind of equalizing that? So the user that's a fan of that podcaster, no matter how poorly the guy performed that day in recording, they could fix it so it matches the preferences with that person's sound ID. Is that a concept that, am I understanding that correct?
In this case, for example, if you look at podcast recording and podcast sound, then I would say the best would be to use our Pro Sonarworks Reference 4 tool for the podcast creator to make sure he or she can actually listen on this balanced sound, how does the podcast sounds, and do correction before it's saved and sent out. So kind of, I would say this Pro Studio tool would be the most helpful, because if you, listen to your podcast on this balanced sound and you love it, you say it's great, it will perfectly translate to anyone out there. With SoundID, we ensure that it is this perfect translation until this finest finesse, but that's kind of personalized.
Okay. Yeah, and then maybe some more. So you guys are headquartered in Latvia, but you have offices around the world. Where are you guys located?
Yeah, so our I think by now we are close to 70 people in a team, and our key office and lab is in Riga, Latvia. So kind of now we are enjoying the bit rainy autumn days, but it's good. It's still nice. We have office in States in around the Bay Area, and then we have also office or small team in China. So in a way we cover Americas, Europe, and Asia from time zones and also from a team perspective.
Okay. Is there more presentation to go through, or can we close it so we can see everybody?
Pretty much this covers the slides. So let me then
okay, I can clean you up there. There you go.
Yep.
All right.
Perfect.
Jānis, what's the business model? Do you, if I wanted to put the technology into a headphone, is it a license?
Yeah, typically we look at the licensing business model for technology. But we are also open to discuss some more innovative business models. For example, if I would look at you mentioned Spotify or streaming, we know that streaming industry is, in some markets in a way maturing, and they are trying to see if there is some more value they can bring users and possibly, upsell some of the users. In this case, this can be thought as a revenue share business model. So it depends what is the use case for our potential partner, and based on that we can figure out which business model would fit better.
Interesting.
Okay. So 70 people, Riga, States, China. And how are things going this year? I guess with firmware business, you kind of just send people a file to upload. Is it as simple as that to execute in product development, or is it still been challenging under these COVID restrictions to execute on new product?
Kind of this year, when all the COVID came in big time, we were very concerned, end of Q1. But kind of if I maybe split in the pro side and consumer side, the unique thing we learned on the pro side is that with many creators and engineers now working in not perfect home studios or home environments or headphones, our technology is, doing job amazingly well. So we were in a way pessimistic, but we had incredible growth on the pro audio space because kind of people could benefit big time from using our technology for recording music, movie audio, game audio. That's amazing. If we look at the consumer space, I think over this year, very many companies have adapted to working from home. And this has been, in a way, also efficient way how to build partnerships in online world. Ideally, I would love to travel and meet our partners in States or Europe or Asia and make sure our engineering team can travel and make sure everything works. But we have actually learned that everybody has adapted to, Zooms, Hangouts, Skypes, Teams, kind of, and pretty much things are moving forward and can be done really well also in online mode. And that has been pretty incredible learning.
Right. So, I mean, is that into what we call the unified communications category, where are you finding product development in that space?
Can you maybe expand on what do you mean by unified communication?
It's all this kit that we're buying to basically communicate from home office nowadays. So brands like Logitech or Polycom, these kind of guys making either, speaker systems, etc., to go with your notebook and such, so that, we're doing Zoom right now. So this is kind of all the accessories, the consumer user, because I know that market, like Logitech, is up a lot this year on that category of goods.
Yeah, and kind of this category and kind of I would answer that in two parts. With more and more people being nicely equipped for homework, we can ensure things move forward on the product, on the engineering side, because the tools are there. And if we look also at the specific, say, headphones people use or home speakers, the interesting thing is that with our technology, we can also ensure it is the best possible experience for you to have. For example, if you would, there are different headphones, and if you would have headphone with lots of bass and hardly any mids, kind of, it would give you bit boxy sound, but with our technology, bringing that to the studio reference, it would be this perfectly clear sound that you would hear everybody really well in a conference call or in a kind of Zoom conversation. So we definitely see that with more people having these all the right tools at home, and with our technologies that can be applicable for these tools, it's kind of, in a way, the perfect storm right now.
Yeah. No, that's exactly is the voice clarity on conference calls. It's Zoom is quite good, but I noticed that maybe Teams or other ones, everyone has their upside, but sometimes the audio is a little bit tough. I noticed, not to criticize Apple, but I noticed the AirPods, in my perspective, were very difficult to understand people talking over conference calls on AirPods. So hopefully Sonarworks can help those guys out.
Definitely. Yeah. And we have had, I also have had a really interesting experience when there are some artists, when they sing, it's very hard to understand them, what are the lyrics. But when we apply Sonarworks technology, this first layer, this to the reference, like, I finally understand what they are saying. It's good. It's super, super high clarity.
Cool.
So that is.
And so the company is privately held or public?
Company is privately held. In a way, we are 10 years and we still see as kind of semi-startup, because we are really established in the pro audio space. We are, world leaders there. But in consumer space, we feel like we are, startup, on the first years of the acceleration. So it's kind of, it's a really amazing and good dynamic we feel in the company. Kind of, we have this one side that is, solid and has all the learnings, and then the other team is kind of, growing fast and, doing all the magic in a global level.
Okay, cool. Simon, do you have any more questions?
Oh, that's it for me.
Jānis, anything else you'd like to add?
Hey, I would say just Dave, thank you very much for having me on the call, and Simon, thanks for all the questions. And eventually, if you have any partners that you would see would benefit from this technology, we are happy to talk, because kind of we are now on amazing growth trajectory, and partnerships is our key path forward. So thank you for time and conversation.
Okay, yeah. So also in the description, we'll put down the links so people can download the app for their phone or computer or tablet, and also put the links to information on how to contact Soundworks. So I guess also, if you like what we're doing, the cheesy part, subscribe and like to our THD podcast. So Jānis, thank you very much for joining us here today. And Simon, thanks for calling in again. Good job, guys.
Thank you very much, Dave. Thank you. Okay.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.